them.
I didn't do anything wrong, Chuck.
I really wish you'd stop saying that.
Welcome to Hacks on Hacks. It's a new podcast from the Washington Free Beacon in which we, a bunch of hacks, talk about the trials and tribulations of our fellow hacks in the media. I'm Sonny Bunch, executive editor of the Washington Free Beacon and one of the co-hosts of the Sub Beacon podcast. Joining me on my left today, ironically, is Elizabeth Harrington, senior writer at the Washington Free Beacon, and who some of you will know as the host of Write and Writer. Thank you for joining us on this new adventure.
Hey, Sonny. Thanks for having me.
And on my right, again, ironically, is the noted squish, one of several here at the Washington Free Beacon, Alex Griswold. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Sonny?
I'm very well. So up first this week, if we're going to talk about the failures of the media, we have to talk about the Covington kids. It's really a pretty disastrous story. If you were living under a rock last week, there were some kids at the March for Life. Some of them were wearing MAGA hats, and there was video shown of them taunting and surrounding a Native American elder, and just horrible, bad things were going on. And then we saw a little more footage, and we realized that literally everything about this story was wrong as it was initially presented to us. The confrontation was sparked off by some Black Hebrew Israelites, which is if you live in the D.C. area, you know these people as notorious racist cranks. Who hang out on street corners and yell at tourists.
Yell at you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yell at tourists. I lived in Chinatown for a few years, and let me tell you, one of the highlights of my morning was walking by them every day to see what sort of nonsense they were peddling. So you had these people spewing racist, homophobic nonsense at the kids, and then you have this Native American elder, Nathan Phillips, wanders up to one of the kids and starts banging a drum in his face. Now,
it's really good to diffuse the situation.
That's how you diffuse situations.
Exactly. That's how you
musical
diffuse
instruments.
That's how you diffuse situations. But Brian Stelter summed up the state of play on his show over the weekend. Let's listen to that clip now.
This time last week, there was a story about Covington Catholic in the news, that confrontation in Washington. I don't think this ever should have been a national news story, but it went viral on Twitter. Journalists have an unhealthy relationship with Twitter, became a national story. And to me, Jess, this is another example of the information war. Two different versions of what happened, no ability to see, no ability to agree on what happened, and a story that, frankly, just ends up frustrating everybody.
Yeah, so, leaving aside the fact that most of the media spent the week trying to double down and say, oh, you know what, they were still wearing the MAGA hats, that's a provocation in and of itself. Alex, I have to wonder, how many times does a teenager deserve to be punched in the face for wearing campaign paraphernalia that the people in the media don't like?
Well, according to Twitter, quite a few times. You see, off the top of my head, you had Reza Aslan said it. Remember when he was, by the way, considered like a major deal? Like he was supposed to be the next big biblical scholar. I think that was just because of his last name. Yeah. They saw Aslan and
Aslan.
like, well, he's got the connection to Jesus. Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous that you had a bunch of reporters openly saying that they wanted to punch this 17-year-old child in the face because of 30 seconds of video that they watched. And it says a lot more about them than it says about the kid, obviously. The fact that you saw this kid, you had people saying, well, this is the face of the patriarchy, this is the face of white supremacy. It was just a kid's face. No one's ever met him. You don't know what's in his heart, but the fact that you're drawing these assumptions is ridiculous, and I want to say none of these people backtracked. Not one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, there was a very good piece by Andrew Sullivan.
I did like that. Yeah.
He had a great line here. This is Sullivan. They were 16-year-olds subjected to verbal racist assault by grown men, and then the kids were accused of being bigots. It just beggars the mind that the same liberals who fret about microaggressions for 20-somethings were able to see 16-year-olds absorbing the worst racist garbage from religious bigots and then express a desire to punch the kids in the face. Liz, which of your childhood tormentors did this young man most represent? Is there anybody? Did somebody pop into your head when you saw the smirk?
No. When I initially saw this thumbnail or his picture going through up and down my feed, I was like, nope, next. I'm not looking at this. I do not care. I do not care what this story is.
Was it
because it was such a mob on it and everyone was saying the same thing. So I thought, let's wait to see what actually happens. Because they thought they finally got the MAGA kid attacking somebody when we've seen like countless stories of the kids wearing the hats that actually get attacked. No, it turns out, of course, everything was actually wrong. But this Brian Stelter clip is so great because this could have been an opportunity for what they like to call a teachable moment.
It's a teachable moment.
About everything that's wrong with the media, how they run with the story that they don't check. It's all their preconceived biases and notions. Basically a smear campaign. They could have had some self-reflection. Instead, he says, you could never possibly figure out what actually went on here. So let's just move on.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, there's 2 hours of footage of these screaming bigoted things. Everything they accuse the white Catholic boys of doing, these black Hebrew Israelites did to them. It's so insane.
It is actually shocking too, because like you in some of the initial reports on this story, it was like they were deemed black protesters, a group of black protesters.
Well, they were just going off Nate Phillips. That's what he said.
Exactly. Right. So you think like, oh man, there's some like Black Lives Matter guys out there or something, and these racist Kentucky teenagers are intimidating them, and it is just emblematic of everything that is wrong.
Right, and that's what, in the Sullivan piece, he quotes Ruth Graham of Slate, who, after being proven wrong, right, about the Catholic boys, in which he said, well, the context didn't change the larger story. And, of course, the larger story is white privilege, patriarchy, all this nonsense. So that sums up the media to a T right there. It's always about their narrative, whether the facts
Ruth Graham of Solygate, we have to make clear to our readers. She was the one who wrote the "How dare you should not fawn over the service dog who was watching over George H.W. Bush." I'm like, as soon as I saw the name, I'm like, that is familiar. I remember hating you, but I can't remember why.
Okay, so we go from the MAGA kids to the Starbucks billionaire Howard Schultz. He's decided that he wants to get out of the Frappuccino business and into the presidenting business. He got a nice little spot on 60 Minutes to discuss the country's need to shift our paradigm and think outside the box about our bipartisanship problems. Liz, I have to say, as ridiculous as Schultz is, and I think we can all agree that this is a vanity project that will go nowhere, as ridiculous as he is, I'm struck by the vehemence of the opposition to his entry into the race. I'm old enough to remember when a plucky outsider candidate from Utah was going to shake things up with his revolutionary post-partisan ideas.
Right, you like that guy.
I did. I will
got
admit.
On the bandwagon.
I will admit
so
that.
You should like Schultz. He sounds so reasonable. Centrist.
Look, but what do you think the difference is between Schultz and McMullin?
It's so
here?
Weird. Yeah. Why would the media dismiss a guy that sounds an awful a lot like a Democrat, but really think it's important to democracy for a guy that might take away votes from Trump, like McMuffin a couple years ago? I can't imagine why they would. No. It's almost like they have they've chosen sides in this.
Well, it is. They call the instantaneous calls for boycotts against Starbucks. I will never, as long as Howard Schultz is in the race, I will never drink another $6 espresso frappuccino mocha. I don't know. All I get is the coffee there. Yeah. Alex, what do you think Schultz's most likely impact is? Because I have to be honest with you, the idea that he's going to peel off a significant segment of the potential Democratic vote strikes me as totally wrong.
I don't know what percentage he'll peel off of the Democratic vote, but I was saying earlier, I don't think that it'll be such a big proportion of Democrats as people think. I think he could actually pull about as much of Republicans as he does Democrats. This is something we heard about Ross Perot back in the day. The fact that he's the reason why George H.W. Bush lost the election. But if you go to exit polls back then, and he said to people, well, who's your second choice? They went about halfway for Bush and Clinton. When I look at Schultz's platform, he says the greatest threat to American security right now is the debt. He wants to balance the budget. He hates tariffs. If you're a Republican who's a bit of a squish, who perhaps doesn't care about social issues, who doesn't like Trump, why wouldn't you vote for him? I'm thinking of all the people I know back in the suburbs who are Republicans who really didn't like Trump. And Schultz seems like the kind of guy they could vote for.
Yeah, but he's a Democrat on everything else.
I know. And he's also boring as hell.
Climate change. Yeah, he's not fair. the most charismatic.
He really is.
Yeah.
That was the complaint that we had on Right and Writer. He might not peel enough Democrats off because he's so boring.
So we can count on though months and months of Schultz appearances on cable networks,
so.
right?
Yeah,
like where as an interesting third party candidate, he's just going to get out there and we've all got that to look forward to, don't we?
Yeah, I'm sure they're definitely. We should actually make a comparison to see how many McMullin appearances, because he was on all the time, because they thought, going to get Utah away from Trump and somehow get the House to vote for someone else as president or something.
All right, moving on. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whose penchant for feuding with the media rivals only Donald Trump's, is once again fighting with the fact checkers, this time over minimum wage and the living wage. Alex, why does the press keep picking on the notorious AOC, despite her sterling record for truthfulness and accuracy?
We see this all the time, don't you? Which is that you have some Democratic star who rises that everyone talks about, and then you get a bunch of negative headlines. People start attacking her. People start looking into her background, or his, as it may be. And then you get, why are you obsessed with this person? Why are you picking on her? Is it because she's X, Y, and Z? And it's like, you're the one who prompted her up.
Yeah.
I mean, they were saying, I don't know if we're going to play the reliable sources audio later, but they were saying on that, well, why is she getting so much more attention than other members of Congress? Well, because she's getting more attention than other members of Congress already. So, of course, she's going to get more attention from fact checkers. Of course, she's going to get more attention from conservatives. And also, she just lies a lot. I mean, she just says things that are not true, and she says it constantly. And that's because of her social media strategy, where she just tweets whatever she thinks. She'll see sort of a brain-dead, liberal writer will tweet something that's completely wrong in her feed, and she'll latch on to that. A normal congressman just lets it go, or maybe they send it to their chief of staff, say, look into this. The chief of staff looks into it, and then 3 hours later, the communications director puts out a statement. Ocasio-Cortez essentially cuts out the middleman, but sometimes you need that middleman. And so she sounds like a fool.
Liz, why do you think it is that she gets kind of a pass from the press when she attacks the press?
Maybe because she's a Democrat.
Well, yes, but also, I think it was either Alex or David Rutz or somebody at our esteemed website made the very good point that she always prefaces her attacks with, "Look, I know the media is the most important institution staving off tyranny."
Right. I mean, I guess, of course, she says that because she doesn't want them to completely go after her. But it's funny, the fact checkers are so thin-skinned that when she goes after them, they have to really go after her and be like, facts are facts. But, yeah, she totally gets a pass on her attacks of the media because she's a Democrat. But on CNN, I love the only time there is room for self-reflection there is, well, maybe we're going too hard on her because we are sexist.
Yeah, let's just listen to that CNN clip for 1 second. All right.
Is she trying to have it both ways, Charlotte, by one day, she's criticizing the Washington Post fact checker. The next day, she's talking about how important journalism is to society. Is there something Trumpian at all about her journalism critiques?
Well, I think it's really important to make a distinction here. Donald Trump is calling journalists the enemy of the people, and AOC is not doing any of that. I think that she is in a unique position where she is getting a tremendous amount of scrutiny for a freshman congresswoman, and I think that she's pushing back on some of the intense scrutiny. I mean, look, I don't see any male members of Congress who are being fact-checked with the intensity and specificity and frequency that she is. I think that she deserves to be fact-checked. She is a member of Congress.
They always have to admit, she's a Latina, she's young, and blah, blah, blah. Actually, Alex is right. They're the ones that propped her up in the first place. And the problem on the right that we have with AOC is that she's basically a communist and wants it's her ideas. Like the Green New Deal is insane and basically wants the government to run your entire life. That's the problem we have. And she happens to be wildly wrong about everything she says.
She wants enormous tax rates. She wants to get rid of our cars. She wants to take away your insurance. Like it's all there's all sorts of
mainstreaming those ideas. That's what I don't like about AOC.
Now we turn to Andrew Kugel, who, in addition to producing this wonderful podcast, keeps an eye on The View for us. Andrew, what's going on The View?
God's work.
Yeah. It's tough, Liz. It's very tough. Well, today, Howard Schultz was on his book tour and future presidential campaign groundwork, whatever, if he does decide to run.
Laying the groundwork.
Yeah. And he faced blowback like he has throughout all his media appearances. But there's one instance that I thought was interesting. During this conversation, he told The View that, and the audience, that no one can buy the presidency. I think we have that clip.
Yeah, let's listen to that now.
Can I ask you all one question, and maybe even the audience? Does anyone believe the current system, not only the president, but the current political system and our government is working well on behalf of the American people?
Not since Obama was elected, no.
No.
No,
It's not,
I do think it's the best system
But I think
that
it
we
has to do
have.
with money in campaigns and money in politics. And you're a glaring example that as long as you're a billionaire, you can run for anything. And my problem with politics right now is the influence of money. And no shade at you, but you do have to be a billionaire to run as an independent. That's why Michael Bloomberg's the other example you've given.
Well, but you can't buy the presidency. The American people are going to decide. But let me just make one point. No. Can I make one? Can I make one point?
Sure.
Yeah, they didn't seem to be having any of that.
Nope, you could hear the audience at the end jeering at him and saying, like, how dare he? But Schultz might have a point here. He's actually right. Let's look back. Who won in 2016? Clinton spent way more money than Trump, and Trump won. And how many billionaire presidents do we have? Trump is actually, he is the richest president. I just did a quick Google search. He's the richest president we ever had, next to George Washington.
Oh, George Washington?
Yeah.
This was adjust for inflation?
I think they Google searched that. Again, it's very unfair.
Okay.
But,
Very scientific.
So if anyone could buy the presidency, why hasn't Jeff Bezos done it? Bill Gates in the past? Like, all these rich people have bought the presidency.
Well, it's funny because if you were a billionaire, there are so many better things to buy than the presidency, like mega yachts.
Right.
For instance.
Didn't you have a thread on
Dan
this?
Snyder.
Yeah. Or, I guess you could buy a basketball team.
Yeah, right.
Which Howard Schultz may have done
Great
already.
experience doing that, too.
Yeah, but I like it, the idea that you can't buy the presidency is one of these things that it strikes me as like factually right, but kind of beside the point. Like the only reason the audience is right, the view is right. The only reason he is running is because he has billions of dollars. And can waste, 200,
to light it
300,
on fire,
right?
like
Literally,
the team of consultants.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a shady consultant, I would be latching Remora onto the underbelly of the Schultz campaign just to suck some of that delicious consultancy fees.
Speaking of Steve Schmidt, who has on good authority that he's behind the Schultz campaign or is going to be,
I think he's
a big part of it.
He's involved.
Yes, he's been taking some flack as well on Twitter from liberals saying like, we trusted you when you renounced the Republican Party. We welcomed you with open arms, and now you do this to us. Great. I respect Schultz because he's doing the hustle. Like, he knows what's up. In other news, though, there's CNN just made a new hire, a failed governor candidate, Andrew Gillum, which is kind of interesting because earlier this week, news broke out that Gillum's ethics investigations going forward. Some state officials have found on 5 of the 6 counts that there's probable cause, and so they're going to move forward with an investigation.
Does this include the investigation into how he got the Hamilton tickets?
Yes. I believe so, yeah. It's taking gifts from...
If Hamilton can take down one politician, the whole terrible play would have been worth it.
Yeah. This is the most liberal ethical violation that there has ever been. It's taking Hamilton tickets from an undercover FBI agent.
How can CNN hire this guy, though? I mean, he's under an ethical cloud. He's a failed candidate. Who really cares what Andrew Gillum has to say?
This is good news for Hillary Clinton. If she doesn't decide not to run in 2020, she has a job at CNN.
Yeah. Well, she probably could have, she probably could have swung that already anyway.
But I think on CNN, though, is they make this big point about not hiring like Sean Spicer and former Trump officials because they lie so much and we can't hire them, but let's hire the former politician who's under, an investigation for ethics violations. Yeah. Not even wait till the investigation's over or anything. Yeah. I mean, literally the announcement that the investigation was going forward, and then CNN the next day announced that he was coming on. Just a little thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kugel. Now we're going to get to the worsts of the week.
The worst.
This is just going to be a segment where we look at the worst tweet, the worst TV news segment, and the worst print or web article. Print web, it's all about the same. Article in any given week. So, what was the worst tweet this week? Alex?
Well, I will say with full disclosure that we preemptively disqualified any Covington tweets because good luck picking from any of those.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
said,
there were a million of them. We could have gone with any
how
of
could
the.
you pick just one?
We could have gone with any of the people saying my favorite. I'll just do one.
Go for it. I'll just go for it.
My favorite was the thread from the BuzzFeed writer who said that the smirking kid's face reminded her of all of the students who would come to her and try to seduce her during office hours to get a better grade on their papers. I was just like, somebody's got a problem here. It's not MAGA kid,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right, so Alex, what was the worst?
The tweet I did pick for worst was from our good friend Tom Brokaw. I say our good friend. He's not of NBC News, who went on, I would say is not actually that bad of a tangent on his Meet the Press appearance. I think what did he end up saying? It was that Hispanics need to assimilate.
He said
more.
Hispanics do not do as good a job as other immigrant groups of assimilating,
which is ridiculous, but sort of it's why the term microaggression was. I should preface because our audience probably doesn't know because it's not obvious from my name. I'm half Hispanic. I am the son of a Hispanic woman, and what Brokaw specifically said was they need to do a better job like teaching their kids English. There is no Hispanic child who is raised in this country who does not speak English. I mean, it's ridiculous. It just doesn't happen. It's 99.999% speak English. But that rant out of the way. Brokaw is one of the olds, so he tweets like one. I don't understand why. I think
this is like somebody having a stroke tweeting.
I think they get the idea that online you don't capitalize everything, you use abbreviations. I'm being hip, but so the uncapitalized tweet says, "My tweet portal is whack. I have been trying to say I am sorry I offended, and I so appreciate my colleague."
My colleague. I don't even know
who is the colleague.
He's referring
I
to.
don't know.
I love this tweet. I think
It's
this
so
is one of
great.
the best tweets of the week.
It's really like poetry.
It looks like a haiku the way it's written out.
I just want to know who told him to type whack.
Whack.
Yeah.
My tweet portal is whack.
It's those boomers, the dumb boomers.
Dumb boomers.
Yeah.
My tweet portal is whack. And also, is he trying to blame this on like using his iPhone? My tweet portal? Is
I
he,
don't
like,
know what the portal is.
I think he might be
I was
referring
using-
to like the mentions.
I was using
That's what I
web
think.
Twitter, so I couldn't quite figure out how to do it right. I don't understand what is, I assume he's not using TweetDeck. Could you imagine if Tom Brokaw had like a TweetDeck column
Yeah,
that was
probably
just for
not.
Tom Brokaw? Like, what are people saying about me today? Anyway, yes, thank you, Alex, for the worst tweet
Of course.
of the week. Liz, what is the worst print object?
Okay, it's June 11th. Mark your calendars.
Okay.
Because we are the announcement of Jim Acosta's forthcoming book. That is the release date, and it's called "The Enemy of the People: A Dangerous Time to Tell the Truth in America." Because it's really, really hard work, scary for Acosta to stand up there and like quote the Statue of Liberty. It's really
All those journalists going to the American gulags.
Right.
It's
it is so Stelter actually scooped with this news of Acosta's new bombshell book, and it's never before revealed stories of this White House rejection of truth. And this is a quote from Acosta himself on what it's going to be: "The sobering, bewildering, and sometimes frightening experience has made it absolutely clear that this is a dangerous time to tell truth in America." It's actually like the safest time to just spew out the conventional wisdom that Trump is bad in America. Like what I don't know what Acosta's talking about, but he's very brave.
why is he not calling this book Dear Diary?
I know.
I mean, honestly, it is like it's easy synergy. You've got a President Trump tweet out there already, riffing on the Dear Diary joke. But,
oh my gosh.
Have they released the cover for the book yet?
I know. It's probably going to be. I hope it's the same picture of him just cropped out, but he had April Ryan and what was that other reporter? And they look so bold and fearless on the lawn.
I hope it's him looking into a mirror.
I mean, it's basically, it's definitely going to be a picture of him.
I was going to say, I would take
No
odds
doubt.
of what are the chances that his picture is on the cover, but no one would take the
Nobody
the
would take
opposite.
that action. Yeah, you'd have to give me like 1,000 to 1 on that one. I can't imagine. taking that. All right, Andrew Kugel, what was the worst video this week?
It was from MSNBC host Chris Matthews. He said about California Senator and 2020 candidate Kamala Harris, if she's African, seen as an African American. I think we have the clip.
Yes, let's listen to that now.
I get the feeling that she's going to set up her headquarters in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Largely African American town.
Yeah.
She's
I don't understand that.
I'll explain.
I don't understand why she's in Baltimore. She's from Oakland. So she should be in Oakland.
She wants to win the South Carolina primary. That's what I do.
So put her headquarters in South Carolina. I think that she's got a lot of strengths here. She's got a bio, she's got a record, she's a prosecutor with a heart, she's got a lot to deal with, keeping people out of recidivism.
Is she seen as African American? Is she seen as African American?
Is the organization that she pulls up? Yes, I think she's seen as African American. The fact she was at Howard University today, one of the oldest, they call themselves the oldest. I went to Morehouse. I think we're a little bit older. But she was at Howard University today when she did her announcement.
That's a
Matthews has a history of kind of questioning people's ethnicities. I think
is that a microaggression?
I think it's macro.
If you remember during 2016, he questioned Cruz and Rubio's ethnicity all the time, saying, is he really a Cuban or Hispanic? And just Matthews shouldn't be making these arguments.
Yeah, again, as one of the resident Free Beacon squishes, I will say that one thing we might want to avoid doing is making these sort of as white people,
Indeed.
Maybe we
Griswold's
should
half Hispanic.
avoid
check your privilege.
White Hispanic. Right?
Yeah, I think Griswold's okay, and we talk about the worst, but we need to be honest here. The Free Beacon makes mistakes too. Free Beacon is not perfect, so every week we want to look at the worst thing that the Free Beacon does in any given week, and this week the worst at the Free Beacon is Alex Griswold.
Wow.
I mean, it
will be for most weeks if we're being honest.
Here's why he is the worst is because Ned Price, who is a Hillary backing
former Obama official.
He worked with Ben Rhodes, I think.
He was very interested to note that the Free Beacon had written a story about Linda Sarsour's negligent Holocaust statement. She didn't mention Jews.
It was
in the
negligent,
Holocaust.
not intentional.
Mr. Price notes that this write-up is longer and more in-depth than the Free Beacon write-up of the White House's failure to mention Jews in its 2017 statement. So what Mr. Price has done here is noted that the Free Beacon actually covered both
stories,
the White House and the Democratic operative.
He's doing the word count on that. Good for him.
No, but the reason that Alex is the worst here is because he writes long all the time. And look, I've told Alex a million times that he needs to write shorter stories and be a little bit more succinct with his verbiage. But no, he goes on and on and on. And now we're getting called out. We're getting called out for being unfair to the Democrats because we cover both of them equally, more or less, but slightly more. We write slightly more words about Linda Sarsour than the White House. Thanks, Alex.
But yeah, too long didn't read.
When I filed that story, it was shorter than the Greedo story. I linked to a tablet piece, and they
No. He's trying to blame the editors.
I try to read you, Griswold, but I click on it, and it's always too long. Too long didn't read.
He goes on and on. He sends me these 1,000-word blog posts, and I'm like, no, get rid of this, get rid of this.
Yeah.
He's like, no, but I have to quote these things. I'm like, do you really? So anyway, Alex, you're the worst.
I use a lot of words. They're good words.
You're the worst.
They're the best words.
You're the worst. You're the worst except for this podcast, which is probably the worst. All right. Thank you very much for joining us this week, the inaugural episode of Hacks on Hacks. I hope you'll come back every week. We hope to go up every Wednesday about this time. So see you next week.